32. Short break. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Oh, see, look at that. We're almost up. See, we'll be at that 100 before. I have 9:30 on my clock. So we'll give the people another 2 minutes and say, oh, we're at 92. We're going to break that 100. Let's break 100 and then we'll start. Hey, Willie, if you could show that picture now for about 2 minutes.
Convocation, correct?
Yes, that one. Yes, and our numbers are going up. We're over 100. So we're going to get started. 1 second. Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome to Hudson County Community College Convocation Fall 2020. Today is Wednesday, September the 30th, and we invite you to participate fully in this topic for today, Diversity Matters, Taking Action. So we have a lineup of some phenomenal speakers. You're going to hear from the president of our amazing college. You're also going to hear from our executive vice president and provost and several other leaders and people around the college. But we have a very special speaker for you today, and that is none other than one of our students, an engineering science major, Courage Levon. And I'm going to turn it over to him so that he can, yes, let's give a hand. Oh my goodness. We are very, very excited about that, and we're going to turn it over to him right now. Courage Levon, take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Lisa, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. So I was born and raised in the Central African nation of Cameroon, where I have spent the past 17 years. Cameroon is geographically located in the Central African Gulf of Guinea, and growing up in Cameroon is like taking a tour around the continent. I attended high school at a local but famous government bilingual institution located in the northwest region of the country in the town of Kumbu. While at school, an insurgence that had begun as a result of political momentum plummeted with violence and resulting to the disruption of education and livelihood within the region. I felt like human rights were taken away from my community within the blink of an eye. I really wanted to go to school and hoped the conflict would end sooner. But the continued disruption of academic infrastructure, the killings and murders of students and teachers who dared go to school or were even suspected of going to school made me to reevaluate the importance of peace and freedom of education. You know, trying to go to school, I could have gotten killed or maimed. I had to stop going to school for a while, and feeling like I had nothing left, I had to risk it anyways as I barely made my way through completing my education back in 2017. Unlike here in the United States, where the rights to education are fully expressed and everyone has access to almost all the resources they need without question, even a thought about going back to school or migrating somewhere else could get one killed back in Cameroon back then. You see, I clearly cannot state how I pulled through, but one thing that kept me strong and resilient was my affiliation to education. I could only be an example of hope for my friends who were deliberately giving up within my sight. My name is Courage Laban, an engineering science student here at Hudson County Community College, and permit me continue my talk by elaborating on the importance of education and then my experience here at Hudson. I have come to value education as a culture, and most importantly, as the roots of civilization, responsible for human progress and societal democracy. Impossible to ignore, education is what binds us together, even through the most conflicting moments. And as said notably by Malcolm X, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. As students, we should hold our educational careers in higher esteem, and with a constant reminder that only 1 out of every 5 students around the world, according to global statistics by the UNESCO, are able to go to school like we do today. Moving to the United States in 2018, I found myself surrounded by a totally new and unfamiliar environment. From culture to societal interaction, a good morning I said to a stranger with a smile. In response, a surprising gaze as if what I said was the opposite of good intention. Deciding on what academic institution was best became a little intricate of a choice for me, as I did research on what colleges were best suitable for studies. Hudson County Community College became my first choice, as I reached out to the admissions counselors, and the immense friendly assistance gave me that pause to sit down and listen to the services the college had to offer. I recall having Mr. Daryl Osemwater as my counselor, and most importantly because of how open and inviting he was to offer me assistance. Mr. Derry wasn't only telling me about Hudson, but I was amazed that he also had background knowledge on the educational system of Cameroon, where I had come from, and that entirely made me feel more comfortable in trusting his counsel as an admissions guide. Aside from the affable encounters, one of the captivating experiences that made me more curious about Hudson was the culture mix, and most importantly, the friendly nature of the surrounding and the diverse culture in which I found myself legalized my reason to stay. Speaking of my experience, I joined the STEM club, and for a student joining a club like that is so very important. I had the opportunity to work with other students where we designed and built rocket prototypes. Sounds like something small, but the experience from this area of study has inspired me so much that after I continue past Hudson, I am going to study aerospace engineering. To mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, students within the STEM club actively developed a prototype of antimicrobial gadgets to be used for push buttons and opening of doors. We also went along to develop a prototype of a robotic dispenser that helps with the distribution of face masks to persons. Why the goal for this summer project was to resolve the spread and contamination factors associated with the pandemic. Being actively involved allowed me to bridge that gap between theory and practice. Not only have I encountered a welcoming environment at Hudson, I have also engaged my part in creating one. Permit me to mention the importance of one thing aside joining a club or doing research is community service. One of my unforgettable experiences is the gardening at Liberty State Park. Planting and weeding flowers and seeing them grow makes me feel more connected to the community, and we really cannot ignore the role played by plant ecosystem in human and environmental sustainability. As a student, this activity has changed my personal perspective on how we interrelate with people and the environment around. I highly would recommend community service as an effortless activism that not only benefits those in need, but allows us to be more connected, building enough motive to influence positive change within our community. I could have just taken my classes, but I decided to get engaged and participate, and so that entirely stimulated my interest in engineering, allowing me to view and objectively contribute to developing solutions to open-ended societal problems like climate change through community service. My relationship with both professors and students have enriched and enlivened my experience here at Hudson. I must give credit to Dr. Theodore Lai, our PTK advisor and student coordinator, who at every circumstance has always been at the top to guide students through community service and academic scholarship opportunities. Thank you, Dr. Lai, for your effortless contribution. The experience here at Hudson has been overwhelmingly positive. The interdisciplinary network with students and professors has been highly supportive, and I cannot stop but mention this great network of faculty and students. Dr. Clive Lee, who I seemingly cannot describe how supportive he has been, leading me through all the skills I have learned in the STEM club. Thank you, Dr. Clive. You are a wonderful mentor. If I have continuously evolved better as a student at Hudson, it is also because of the network of students I have met like Pedro, Anas, Mariam Shirazad, and Carl Ramos. Growing around these persons have continuously inspired me to constructively improve myself every single day, and I could not be more thankful for meeting them. I have always wanted more of science than theory, and it is thanks to the Dean of the STEM department, Dr. Bullier Wood, whose responsive support to myself and other students on projects has inspired us to continue sourcing for the best. To the entire body of the student life and leadership, I still get really amazed on how you have coordinated and helped plan our activities, be it at random or at instant. I want to thank the Dean, Ms. Angela Tuzo, and Ms. Veronica Girosimo for their effortless support in building the student leadership body. In conclusion, and before I conclude, I would like to highlight on one of the challenges we experience today in our society: racism and social injustice. Being here at Hudson has made me feel like I went around the world. Indeed, a diverse and friendly educational community. I have been welcome in this community irrespective that I am Black or from Africa. However, it will be untrue for me to imply same about the country itself from my awkward experiences outside of Hudson. In the conflicting society of hate and disparity towards the minority population, our college can continue to represent an umbrella of diversity and a racial-free environment through expanding the notion of awareness and education on these matters of importance. We must continue to stay free of racism and social injustice within our community. And like I have mentioned at the beginning, we can only continue to reinforce this stance through expanding the culture of education and awareness. Thank you, President Reaver, the administrators, staffs, and professors for creating a welcoming and racism-free environment. Continue to embrace students of all cultures and backgrounds so Hudson County Community College can be even better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Courage, for those inspirational words. Certainly, words to kick off this new academic year to inspire all of us who are on this, who are here at Convocation today. Your words ring out so loud and so true, echoing of your success here at Hudson and how you were able to take advantage of resources that everyone on this webinar today and at this convention, at this convocation, you got me stumbling all over my words. Thank you very much. But that's how inspiring it was, and many people will get a chance to hear it. So we appreciate your efforts in pulling this together. We're grateful and thankful for those who contributed at all to ensuring that your speech was everything that you wanted it to be, to represent your work here at Hudson, your future. And we are just honored for those that already know you, that already been working with you, teaching you, learning alongside of you, your current students, former students, and you just make us so proud. Thank you so much again. Thank you. Really, we really appreciate it. I hope all of your family and friends near and far, I hope you share this wonderful opportunity and accomplishment with them. We really appreciate it. And now we are going to hear from not only is Dr. Christopher Reaver, who also likes to be called Chris, not only is he the president of this amazing institution that you just heard a lot about from our student welcome speaker, Courage Laban. He is also a part of the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges. He's a part of a new committee that they have on social and racial justice. So he was selected for that. He did accept that invitation. So we are also very proud of that. And the Committee on Racial and Social Justice. And we're also very proud and happy that he is with us this morning to give us some more words of inspiration and information. Dr. Christopher Reaver, take it away.
You know, you are the personification of our mission. You are the reason we all are part of this college community. We are here to be partners with you and other students, and your success is our success. And you are an immensely successful young man with a bright future. I marvel at the challenges you've overcome and so many of your peers. And it's just so wonderful to see you blossoming and contributing. We are so thankful to have you as part of our community, and your uh, your message about community service, I think, is so vitally important. So thank you for getting us started in exactly the right way. And Doug Melville, welcome to Hudson County Community College. We are honored you've joined us, and we look forward to your remarks about leading in diversity, a topic of central importance and priority for our entire college community. Like all good things we do at HCCC, Convocation requires caring and diligent planning. So I want to begin by noting that our valued colleague, Lisa Williams, has led the coordination of this important day together, and also playing a major role in making today a great success are Jennifer Christopher, Daryl Jones, Eric Friedman, Linda Guastini, Anna Krapitsky, Ken Maluski, Iris Pujols, Willie Shire, Katie Sweeting, and Omar Williams, and I know others that I have left out. Forgive me if I have not mentioned your name. We thank these dedicated colleagues and all who are presenting and participating in today's program. How about a virtual round of applause? Thank you. Thank you, valued colleagues. Today's convocation theme, as we all know, is Diversity Matters, Taking Action. This theme is exceptionally fitting, as diversity, equity, and inclusion, collectively and in all of its forms, is a shared priority for all of us at Hudson County Community College. Our entire college community remains engaged in planning, including the Academic Master Plan, the Student Success Action Plan, the President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Planning, and now we are embarking on the review of our mission, vision, and values, and that leads us then to the completion of our college's new strategic plan. Through our many conversations and full community engagement in all of this work, two overarching areas of priority have clearly emerged as central and collective values and goals for our community's action, planning, and future aspirations. And I believe I'm correct in saying we all share these values. These are our collective values, and they are, of course, student success and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And moreover, these priorities, these overarching areas of shared values, are fully integrated and mutually supportive. Pervading and underpinning our student success work as a new Achieving the Dream Network College is equity, which integrates seamlessly with our collective efforts to promote continuous improvement in our community's advancement and support for diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of its forms. Our President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will celebrate its first anniversary at HCCC in 3 days. I thank all who serve on this council, some 38 members, including students, faculty, staff, administration, trustees, foundation directors, community leaders, and other community representatives. And I offer special, heartfelt thanks and appreciation to Lisa Williams and Iris Pujols, who co-chair the council with such skill, dedication, and passion. Recently, I reviewed the statement our college community developed last year at the time of launching PAC Day. It's a statement about Hudson County Community College's shared values and commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As we begin today's convocation, I'd like to remind us of this statement that speaks volumes about who we are and what we believe and value, not only as a community, but truly in many ways as an extended family. The introduction to PAC Day's charter reads, and I'm quoting, "Hudson County Community College is proud of its diversity, including one of the most diverse student bodies in the United States. The college is committed to the value and principle that all members of the HCCC community should be treated with respect, dignity, and kindness. Our community celebrates diversity and unity and welcomes all people onto our campuses. We believe that celebrating diversity benefits everyone. The HCCC community encourages culturally aware curricula, recruitment of and opportunities for diverse populations, and this includes the administration, faculty, staff, and students. Diversity training that's available to everyone. Mediation of differences that may arise among our community to derive the best possible solutions and compromises available. Encouragement of diverse conversations and philosophical discussion without censure or hostility. And most important, treating all community members with respect and encouraging their voices to be heard." Over the past year, the work of the President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has in many ways galvanized our entire college community and beyond. It's brought us together and kept us together in these times of unprecedented challenge. Very notably, the work began and grew out of our values and commitments prior to the emergence of murders, hatred, injustice, and violence over the past months that have brought new and intense visibility and pain to the long cadence of injustices in our society. Moreover, the recent and continuing acts of violence and injustice have compounded the challenges, angst, and fear we've all shared through the pandemic. Our college community has been steadfast in its condemnation of these acts and all forms of injustice. That condemnation stems not just from the news of the day, but more importantly, from our shared beliefs and convictions out of which we rose together over a year ago to commit ourselves to reaching new levels of excellence, caring, action, and understanding. Indeed, as one community, as one family. We've seen the best of humanity at Hudson County Community College during these unprecedented times of challenge. I've been inspired daily by the coming together of HCCC community members to support one another by silent acts of kindness, by unsung heroes everywhere in our HCCC family. The myriad of meetings, conversations, remembrances, celebrations, open fora, sharing of personal and life stories across our community, and on have brought us together and strengthened our mutual understanding and commitment to one another, to our students, our community, our nation, and indeed to the citizens of our world. As a united and caring community, we're finding our way forward. We pledge ourselves to living and breathing the values of human dignity and respect as we learn, teach, and work. Our students, and indeed our graduates, are our future. Courage, you are our future. You and all of our students embody these values and a commitment to community service as you yourself championed moments ago, and with that, civic engagement. Through our HCCC mission, our students and the people of our community, we are contributing to positive change and a brighter future for all. Just as Courage noted through his eloquent remarks, there's no greater antidote to racism, hatred, and injustice, and no greater opportunity for understanding, tolerance, and sharing in the American dream than education. Students, colleagues, and friends, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all you do. Together, we're making a difference. Enjoy Convocation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Reaver. Thank you for those opening remarks to continue to help us get started with this day. You know, this is a very special day. This is Convocation 2020. We haven't done Convocation like this, not in my experience with Hudson County Community College. that we're all virtual. Normally we would be in a building, probably hugging and, shaking hands and just, palling around with one another, networking, interacting. Now we're doing some of that. We're doing it a little bit differently because we do have the chat feature and it is available. Please feel free to give a shout out to your colleagues, your friends, individuals in other areas that you've worked with, served on committees with. And we have gotten this semester already underway. Dr. Reaver, we thank you so much for your leadership and for the things that you made happen for us and how you support, all the students, the committees, the departments. And we just appreciate you so much. Well, we have many leaders at Hudson County Community College, and this next person that is going to come and share with you, I just want to say just a couple of words about this individual. I'm not going to do a bio. I don't have that type of bio. I have a basic, natural bio since he did hire me, and I've been working with him for 7 years now, a little over 7 years, when I first met him in January of 2014 for my first interview. But what I could say about Dr. Freeman, he is a leader that gives selfishly of himself. I've seen him stop and not just talk to students in the hallway on Sip Avenue or on Eno's Place, but to actually give them a hand, show them where they need to go, tell them. And not only did he do that himself, but I've watched him encourage others to do the same. I've watched him reach out and invite people to come. Like when I first got there, I wasn't there a few months and I was able to serve on the first academic master plans committee. And I thought, wow, I'm brand new. I don't even know anything. And here I was. I felt like on this high level committee. But that just speaks to the type of person that Dr. Freeman is. He's led many initiatives around the college. And when we were going through middle states and just to watch how, because being in the office right next to him, to watch him come and go and do the things that he was doing and to get that done. Anyway, so enough said. So we have middle states and we're just so appreciative of you, Dr. Freeman. We're so grateful and thankful for the work that you do and how you support the president. Okay, how you support our president. And I'm talking about President Christopher Reaver. Let's not get it twisted. So anyway, Doctor, without further ado, you're going to hear now from our Executive Vice President and Provost, Dr. Eric Freeman, who's going to share some very, very informative information with you. Dr. Freeman, take it away, and you can say a few introduction words, and I'll pull up your slide.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you to Courage. I'm so inspired. Thank you, Dr. Reaver. Thank you to everybody who had a part in making this happen today. As Lisa says, it's a little different from the way we usually do this, but we're still able to be together. We're still able to be inspired, to learn new things, and to, just move forward together. So, Lisa, if you could call up the slideshow. My mission is twofold this morning. And it's, I have the honor of launching our mission, vision, and values review. And you'll hear more in a written invitation to participate that's going to come from Dr. Reaver later today, as well as information that will be forthcoming from John Scanlon, our Executive Director of Institutional Research. The other part of my twofold mission is to recognize an exceptional individual from our community with the Provost Leadership Award. So I am ready for the slides when you are, Lisa.
So they're coming. So why don't you tell us a fast, quick story?
Well, I'm still thinking about Courage talking about the incredible value of getting in soil and helping things grow and how that, affects him and the others that he does that community service with. Beautifying a park in Jersey City in an urban place is such an important piece of community service. And I know that Courage has benefited from Ted Lai's leadership over the years. So Lalisa, if just
We got two more 30 seconds.
okay.
So Dr. Freeman, why don't you talk for just a quick second about what it was like traveling this morning? How long did it take you to get to the campus?
I'm not on campus, so I'm from Command Central here at home.
Okay.
On campus yesterday.
Here we go. Technology always works when you tell it to. Okay.
Okay. So today we're talking about a review of Hudson County Community College's mission, vision, and value statements. And as I said, you'll be hearing more after convocation, as well as an invitation to participate from our president, Chris Reaver. Next slide, please. So what is a mission review? We are launching a comprehensive review and revision of our foundational statements. It's not just the mission. The mission statement identifies our reason for being, our raison d'etre. The vision statement defines our future aspirations for the desired state for the college in coming years. And the value statement, importantly, captures the core values of an organization, in this case, a community college, those principles which are the deepest and most strongly held. Next slide, please. So why now? Why at this moment? There's so much going on. Well, since the last mission review in 2012, we've seen numerous changes, large and small. Changes in leadership at Hudson County Community College, the rise of social justice movements. We're seeing data coming in that's showing shifts, and we're seeing things about students' basic needs that we hadn't seen with such drill down precision before. Many changes in the higher education landscape. The introduction, the continual introduction of new technologies. And now to educate and to do everything that we're doing during a global pandemic. Next slide, please. So the why now question, Dr. Reaver mentioned, we've done an enormous amount of work over the past year on crafting our goals for the President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We've done a tremendous amount of inclusive work, strategic work, to craft a new academic master plan. And there's a big team of super engaged folks around the college who are working with our student success initiatives and have crafted a student success action plan. So these foundational stones will help us because of the questions we've asked, the answers that we have offered, the conversations we've engaged in, will help us as we now move into a survey and engaged fora in which we can debate or defend parts of or the entire mission, vision, and value statements. And as Dr. Reaver said, this will lead us successfully towards the crafting of our new strategic plan. Next slide, please. So that's not me in the little chart, just giving it a little color. Strategic planning. So our timeline, this week, we're going to launch a survey. It's an easy to answer survey. It's going to present the current mission, vision, and value statements, and then ask for your thoughts on each in a simple format. During the week of October 19th, we're going to have the first round of open and inclusive strategy sessions, including some focused sessions for the Board of Trustees, Foundation Board, and a couple of other focused groups. At the end of October, taking the information and the data from the survey and from everything that we've heard and recorded from the inclusive strategy sessions, our consultant, Rick Voorhees, will help us with a first draft of new statements in each of these areas based on responses to the survey and all of those comments. during the week of November 9th. There will be a second round of sessions now that those new statements have been crafted. And prior to the Thanksgiving break, we'll have a finalized version of our new statements. Next slide, please. Next slide. Perfect. So we invite full participation. If you didn't participate last time, it doesn't matter. This is an open invitation to participate. The mission, vision, and value statements belong to all members of our community: students, community members, faculty, staff, trustees, foundation board members, local partners, workforce partners, all the residents, everyone. We want to hear from everyone. So please take the survey, read the environmental scan that will accompany the survey and give you context and information about Hudson County. Attend a strategy session, or even more than one if you feel so motivated, and read and respond to the draft statements when they are available. Next slide, please. So the survey will come to you with a clickable link. And on the web page, starting on October 2nd, will be a link to the survey as well, the timeline, and the environmental scan. The current statements are available on the website, but will be included with the survey. And the major point of contact is John Scanlon, our Executive Director of Institutional Research. Thank you so much for this honor of launching the mission review for this phenomenal college. Now the second part of my charge. I would like to thank Lisa Doherty for providing help with what I am about to read, and insight, and a little bit of love. Dr. David Clark has been with HCCC for almost 5 years. He moved into his expanded role as the Associate Dean for Student Affairs in February 2019. It seems like more than 5 years. I hope that's right. If there is a student success initiative at our college, David is most likely involved, whether it's overseeing college student success course, the first year experience, the Educational Opportunity Fund, new student orientation, and so many others. If I had to make a choice of what his most impactful work on behalf of students has been, it is Hudson Helps and the CARE team. David has provided leadership, stellar leadership, for the conceptualization and development of HCCC's Hudson Helps Resource Center. Hudson Helps started with food pantries on both campuses in spring of 2019 and will soon come to fuller fruition as a physical resource center with a food pantry complete with refrigerator and freezer, career closet, social work interns, New Jersey SNAP assistants, and many other resources to support students. David has also led the creation of the college's CARE team, which meets regularly to review students of concern who either refer themselves or are referred by others. These students may need to be put in touch with community resources. They may need mental health or wellness support or emergency funding through the CARES Act or Hudson Helps. This is equity in action. David embodies what it means to be student-centered, especially during this pandemic. When the entire college moved off campus in March, we asked David to keep the food pantries open. He and his team did not flinch. When we ordered 650 Chromebooks and needed them distributed to students, we asked his team to facilitate this through the food pantries. Again, they did not hesitate. If it is important to students, it is important to David. Not only does he provide much needed care and support for students, you may not know this, he is our Chief Judicial Officer. And even in that role, when he is the enforcer of rules, he shows great compassion for our students, advising and coaching them to be better community members. In closing, and I'll also hold up a special plaque that we have prepared and read from that. In closing, David exemplifies our values. He stands for social justice. He has earned this special recognition. Thank you, David Clark. Let me read from this plaque. Hudson County Community College Provost Leadership Award presented to Dr. David Clark in recognition of your continued hard work, engagement, and commitment to the health and well-being of all students at Hudson County Community College. You have excelled as a leader, role model, and collaborator. Thank you, and welcome to everyone this morning. Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Freeman, for those updates about the mission and the projects that you are also leading. Thank you for, that Provost Leadership Award. Thank you for recognizing you people's work and what we do. We know everyone could get an award. There's just not enough time. So with that being said, now we're keeping up with time, so that's really good. Just to remind everyone, if you go to myhudson.com/convocation, you will also have the full agenda and program for the day, not just this morning. But to move right along, we're going to keep going, and now we're going to hear about some of the things that is happening with technology. Technology is a time right now that we all would like to know more about. And so to do that, we have our CIO, and we also have our Vice President of Enrollment and Admissions, and we have our Executive Director of the North Hudson campus. So the three of them can take it away, and they can tell you more about who they are.
Thank you, Lalisa. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Wonderful. Okay, so like any good technology presentation, I've had some technology issues this morning. So I am on my phone, but I'm glad to hear it is working. So we wanted to start off, we have three topics really to cover with you today. One is how students can access technology, whether it's hardware or software or internet, and then how faculty and staff can do the same. And then of course, the ITV Telepresence on campus. So to start with the student information, if you could advance the slide, please. I think everyone is pretty familiar with how students can get access to the Chromebooks, but I wanted just to reiterate this because we have seen a huge increase in the demand. So if a student needs a Chromebook, they should fill out the coronavirus concern form. It's located at the Return to Campus webpage. The most important thing really is that they include their contact information. Typically, if a student says, I filled it out, nobody contacted me, it's because they filled it out anonymously or didn't indicate their name and ID number, and we absolutely have no way of knowing who requested it. So please just let them know name, ID number, and all they have to say is, I need a Chromebook. They don't even have to explain why, just that they need one. We ordered the 650 originally. We've since ordered another 400. So we have plenty of Chromebooks available. Please have your students request them. If they need something besides a Chromebook, so we know that nursing students need a specific type of laptop. We know that our digital art students need Macs. There might be other classes that have specific hardware requirements. Please reach out to IT, and they will certainly do their very best to provide access or give the students information on how to access the technology themselves. Internet access. We've not had a lot of requests for internet access. I know that it comes in sort of fits and spurts, but if students do not have internet access at home, there are a couple of things they can do. These are all on the website. There are Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots. They can put in their zip code. I just tried it this morning. I put in 07306, and it gave me a whole list of hotspots around my area. Comcast Internet Essentials, they provide free internet service for the first 2 months and then $10 a month thereafter if the student qualifies. So there is an application process. It's based on income and need and so forth, and they can apply online. They may have to call. We are finding that maybe the online process is not as seamless as it could be. And then there's another website called everyoneon.org where students can access low-cost computers and internet access. Finally, the one thing we have going for us this semester that we didn't have in the spring and summer is that our campus is open. So students can access the Wi-Fi here at the college libraries on both campuses, and our open computer labs. And I've listed the names for the rooms for you there. We are opening the student center, second floor, to students. That should be open this week. So, and there are study rooms in the STEM building that are open. So students really need a space to study and need reliable internet access. We recommend that they come to the campus if they are willing and able. So any questions or concerns about student access, please reach out to myself or Dr. David Clark. Congratulations, David, on your wonderful award, by the way. And that is all I have for student access. I will turn it over to Tricia for faculty and staff access.
Hi everyone, good morning. So I'm here in our L building in one of the ITV classrooms. I thought that might be a nice way for you to see what it's like. But if you need equipment to be loaned to you, if you're a faculty member or staff, please go to My Hudson, the ITS page. There's the link. And that request will be approved by your manager, and then we will arrange for you to pick up that equipment at the student center, where we have a technician who's there all the time for your benefit. Next slide, please. We also have virtual desktops available. I'm not going to go into reading every letter of this, but basically all of our HCCC applications that you would find in the open lab, the library, or STEM are available if you go to remote.hccc.edu. One exception, Microsoft Access is a little bit old-fashioned, sadly, and it requires you to write to a hard drive. So if you need help with that, please reach out to us at ITS, and particularly faculty members, if you have special requirements, reach out to me and we will find ways to make that available to your students. VDI is a wonderful way to equitably allow access from things like your phone, a tablet, or a Chromebook. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, we have in total about 1,000 devices available for loaning. So next slide, please. So what is ITV Telepresence? I think we need to advance one more time to get more data. So it's ITV Internetwork Television. So here I am in a classroom, and you all can see me from wherever you are. We also can connect these ITV rooms together. Next. And this allows you to really feel like you're there. And I have to say, I know if you're sitting there in A418, probably have the same kind of experience where everyone is very large as life. So it really is quite different from when I'm at home in my home office, as Dr. Friedman is noting. Next slide, please. So the capabilities of this system means that we can join the classroom conferences and meeting rooms. Next. We can extend classes and meetings across both of our campuses. Next. Students can join remotely, just like you are joining remotely from your homes today. Next. And also content can be presented wirelessly. So students can do that from their phones or tablets or Chromebooks. And also the faculty can do that as well. Next. And also we can record lectures from these spaces. So you can get a much higher quality recording than you would typically from your home. Next slide, please. So the support, I'm going to turn that over to Eurus Pujols to talk a little bit about the support for ITV classes that we've put into place.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Tricia and Lisa. First of all, I just want to say congratulations to Dr. David Clark. Very well deserved recognition. ITV, it's we talked about it at College Service Day. We just wanted to kind of keep you up to date with what are the latest developments, and essentially what are some tools that might be beneficial to you and for your students. So we want you to know exactly what is available, what type of support you're going to get, because usually when you talk about a new technology, you always, like I know I get hesitant, like, oh my God, would that work? When I turn the button, is that actually going to turn on, and so on? But we just wanted to let you know that if you're teaching an ITV class, fully ITV class, there are going to be 2 lab assistants assigned, 1 at each location, to make sure that everything goes seamless. As Tricia mentioned, this technology, it's really designed for educators. You just need to be a content expert. You don't need to be a technologist or a master of any of these gizmos and things. We wanted to let you know that there's also going to be an academic coach assigned to your class. As you're going to be dividing your time between both campuses, there will be, you're going to be physically at one location, and there will be an academic coach at the other location, making sure that if there's any items, any support needed, that will be there. Here you have a small block in the center of the page that tells you the classrooms, or the spaces, I should say. L418, which is where Tricia is today, is one of the classrooms. It's a large classroom. Right now is prepared for social distance, that you could have students there, similar as N504. We have smaller meeting rooms, one at Jordan Square, which is where Courage is, and when he presented this morning, that's the office that Dr. Friedman's like to use when he's there for meetings. And he's always telling how colorful and like people, oh, you laughed, and like you are able to catch all of these things that would normally not be noticeable in a regular presentation. So if you don't mind advancing the slide, please. You know what ITV is, what the format is, but we are faced with in a very in a predicament dealing with COVID-19. We've done a great job, I think, adapting to change, coming up with innovative ways to make sure that, 1, we are not compromising our health, and 2, that we are promoting student success as best we can, right? The call that I wanted to make out to you is that these spaces that we mentioned, ITV provides the most flexible options for teaching during this environment. That was not what we were thinking when this first came out. But if you are teaching a remote class, right, and you might not have the best space, might not have the best connection, the internet might not work as well where you are, you're welcome to come to campus. You could come in, you could do the same thing that Tricia's doing, just turn on one of those rooms, and all your students could log in remotely. By doing that, you're not there with anyone else in the room, so there's no contact, and your students are home. You just have access to so much more to do there. We also want to encourage you to think outside of the box. A friend of mine who teaches a class called me. He's like, hey, what if I'm teaching a remote class, but what if I want to give students the opportunity to come to campus? Some of them could benefit from that. That's a conversation that we could have as well, in the sense that maybe you could come to campus, you could do the same thing as Tricia's doing. Those classrooms are set up to have social distance. So you could have maybe 3 or 4 students that want to come in, they could come in, and the rest of your students could sign in remotely. There's so much we could do. Again, there's so much flexibility. And there's a training component that we have, a flyer that it's, there's a flyer that we are circulating. In addition to the flyer, that we're promoting training every Tuesday at 10 a.m., every Thursday at 2 p.m. This is training that you could access in person. Like, you just need to send an email to Amal Akbar, as listed on the flyer. You could come in person to North Hudson. You could come in person to Jordan Square, or you could log in remotely. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about this technology. We're also going to circulate the space availability. If you're teaching a class, just think about it. And any questions, any concerns that you have, we're here to help you and provide the support that we need. With that, I thank Elisa for the opportunity, and for Lisa and Tricia to present it with me. Enjoy the rest of your semester. And Tricia, back to you.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please. So as Eurus was saying, and if you, Willie, you just advance again, you'll be seeing more email coming out about workshops. There's a module within Canvas, and you can always attend these workshops. And also there's our My Hudson WebEx resources page. If you go to that /myhudson/ITS, you'll see the WebEx resources page there. So you can see access recordings and find out what else is happening live. And I think that's our final slide, but go ahead and advance for me. Thank you very much. So here is where you can connect with any of us. I also want to say congratulations to Dr. David Clark. He has been an amazing partner with getting these loan devices both to students and back from students, and working with us as we struggled with this pandemic-related supply chain. I was going to say nightmare, but I think that I'm exaggerating. There's many more things that we can get upset about in these days, and that's probably not one of them. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time today.
Thank you. So again, we want to thank Lisa Dougherty, our Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment. Also want to thank Patricia Clay, Chief Information Officer, and Yuris Pujols, Executive Director, North Hudson Campus, for providing us those updates about technology, about VDI, the virtual desk, and also about the ITV room. So we hope you all take advantage of all of that. And so now we're going to have a quick break. And when we come back from that break, we're going to do about a 5-minute break. Then when we come back, because we promised you a break, we want to give that to you. And then we are going to get a wonderful introduction of our keynote speaker. So get all excited, go have that break and rush back. Thank you. Now, I wish I had some Jeopardy music to play right now. Well, anyway. Dr. Jones, you're queued up and ready to go. Take a break.
Thank you, Lisa.
And we're getting ready. I'm so excited to hear from our speaker. Woo! So you all want to rush back to your spaces. Also, we do want to just echo what others have said. Congratulations to our colleague and our friend, Dr. David Clark, on your leadership recognition and that award. I can't wait to pop down into your office and hopefully see it hanging on the wall. So very, very excited about that. And we are just also excited about everyone being here today. Those of you who are signed in via phone, video, or if you're tuned in, via some other device, we so appreciate you here. And please feel free. We have 2 areas for you. We have the regular chat room where you can, say hello to your colleagues and your friends in the college community. You can also, if you want to, we have a Q&A section as well. And we wanted to try to reserve that for questions that you can pose to any one of the speakers, but certainly also, and if you have a question, try to indicate who that question is for. But if you have questions for our keynote speaker as well, Douglas Melville, we want you to put those there. And we may not get to all your questions today, but at least we'll have them on record and we can always address them later. We also want to welcome anyone from our extended college community, any board of trustee members, any other, PAC Day members that are outside of the college, certainly our students who are on with us today. I want to thank you and welcome all of those of you who are here. And for those of you who will watch this via YouTube or via our portal, that you couldn't be here physically with us today, you had other obligations and you're either registering students or advising students or handling other student concerns and you couldn't be here. We know that you will get to watch this, so we're very excited about that as well. Don't forget, we have workshops in the afternoon that are very important, timely, and we want you to also to participate in those as well. So don't forget to visit the website is right there on the screen, https://myhudson.hccc.edu/convocation. Now, when we come back from the break, we'll give it another 1 minute, and then so everybody come back, and then we will hear, the next voice you will hear will be from Dr. Darrell Jones. He is our Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs at Hudson County Community College. So all of you know him by now. He's been here one whole year, I think, a whole year almost. And so you all have experienced him in one meeting or another. He does attend a lot of meetings. And so you will hear from him. And I think break is over. So is our 5 minutes up? Okay, well, I take back my time now. So Dr. Jones, but you can, it is being recorded. So we know individuals, even though they may have stepped away, they may still have their speakers on so they can hear. And we just want to make sure that we allot as much time as possible to our keynote speaker. So Dr. Jones, I am going to turn it over to you right now. Thank you.
Good morning. Lalisa, how's my volume today?
Your volume today is perfect.
Excellent. It is indeed wonderful to see so many of you as I participate in my very first convocation at the college. As Dr. Reaver stated earlier, Convocation 2020 is aptly entitled Diversity Matters, Taking Action. Saying the words diversity matters can be viewed by some as an easy or hard thing to do, but recognizing words aren't enough. We must take concrete actions to improve diversity within our institution. We must always look for ways to improve our community. As an institution, we aspire to create a diverse and truly inclusive community, but we acknowledge that we have work to do. Like the rest of the world, we have witnessed the tragic and senseless killings of minority groups in the United States. We know we don't have all the answers to ending the systematic racism and oppression that have persisted in the United States for generations, but the biggest mistake we can make is doing nothing at all. Today, we move the needle a little further in our institutional commitment to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. To assist us with this, we are honored to have in our midst the Chief Diversity Officer of TBWA North American, Mr. Douglas Melville. Doug works with numerous organizations on diversity efforts in the areas of talent, culture, and creative vendor relationships. He has presented 3 popular TEDx talks on the topic and has driven TBWA supplier diversity efforts, which have led to $250 million in spend with female and diverse owned and operated businesses. Prior to joining TBWA, Doug held positions across the entertainment industry. He was founder and CEO of redcarpets.com, an online resource for large-scale red carpet events. He also worked alongside Irving Magic Johnson and his New York Times and Irving Magic Johnson as VP for Business Development and Marketing for his portfolio of partners and for his New York Times best-selling book, 32 Ways to Become a Champion in Business. Doug has also worked on the business development team for Tommy Hilfiger's capital management firm. Doug was the recipient of the 2014 American Advertising Federation Educator Award. He was also recognized by Advertising Age as a top 20-something in America. He currently sits on the Ad Color Board of Directors, the Inventive Marketing Advisory Board, and the Executive Committee of the AAF as Vice Chair of the Mosaic Council. In his spare time, if he has any, he works with both the West Point and the Air Force Academy to help bring recognition and honor to the Tuskegee Airmen, America's all-black fighter pilot squadron of World War II. As you can see, Doug has worked extensively with organizations that are truly looking to make a difference throughout their work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Doug is a graduate of Syracuse University, and he stands very tall on the shoulders of an impressive list of ancestral change makers who bravely and passionately challenge the status quo. At this time, I'm honored to pass the baton to Douglas Melville. Douglas.
Oh, so am I on mute?
You're good.
Oh, okay, I'm good. I wasn't sure. I was excited. I think I was on mute.
We can hear you.
Dr. Jones, Lalisa, Dr. Friedman, everyone. Yoris, thank you so much. It is my honor. This is my first convocation that I've ever spoken at. So Hudson County Community College is in my personal Hall of Fame for life. So thank you very much. And I want to welcome everyone who has given their day and carved out time to be part of this fabulous conversation today, all the way from the kickoff with courage all the way to where we are today and the rest of the afternoon. So thank you so much for giving me this stage and this platform at your 2020 convocation. So today, you heard a little bit about me from Dr. Jones. Thank you for that introduction. So today we are going to talk about really a few things. We're going to talk about, number one, why diversity matters, why this is the time, why this is the moment. And we're also going to talk about what you can do when it comes to leading diversity in your own areas, in your own efforts, and realize that every day, every action does have results. When I connected with Hudson County Community College, one of the things that we were talking about was how much the college is doing. And when you look at other community colleges or any colleges throughout the United States, college, university, junior college, this Hudson County Community College system and staff and team is so dedicated to social justice, to reform, to evolution, to changing, to leading, that when they contacted me about coming to this convocation today, it was something that I had made sure to clear my schedule for and be a part of. So I just want to know and let you know how special the organization is through all the calls and contacts. So today we're going to talk about why diversity matters and what you can do. And I am joined by an amazing partner, co-worker of mine, Rashida Peters, who will be working, and she'll introduce herself. Maybe at the end we can go around for a second, but we're going to thank Rashida. So today we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion. We're going to start by saying, what is diversity in the widest definition? And in the widest definition, it's politics. The debate was last night. It's LGBT rights. It's equality in our laws and systems. It's social injustice. It's all of the things that you hear about in popular culture and that you study and learn about in school. It's also about ageism. It's also about disability, visible and invisible. It's about different apertures of words. So those three ladies in the corner, think about it as when you hear the word Latina or Latino or Hispanic, how wide that word is. That's part of diversity. It's also religion. So today we're going to touch on all of the broadest words and go through a little bit about how I do my day job and how I look at diversity to hopefully inspire you. But what we're also going to do is we're going to take a look back, because I want everyone here to learn three things today. So every good presentation has the end and the beginning. So if everyone here can do me a favor and walk away with three things, we had a great time together and I appreciate it. So before I get into what I do today and what I want everyone to do in the future, I want to just take a time out and I want to tell a quick story of the past. So I am a diversity officer today, and many times people think diversity is maybe something that's popular right now, or it's a craze, or it's something that we have to get with because it's in the social conversation. But I want to tell you a quick story of my family. But I tell you this to inspire you and help you understand the connectivity between a father and a son, a father and a son, a father and a son for 5 generations. So I am a 5th generation diversity champion. So the word diversity is a little bit new school, but it did have different interpretations across the last 150 years of our country. So I work in culture. My dad before me worked in law. He was the first Black judge in the state of Connecticut. He felt that he needed to help diversify the tort laws and the books of what actually governs the United States of America. So he made that his passion and went for that. He was raised by Benjamin O. Davis Jr., who was a leader in diversity in aviation in the United States military, and he was the first Black general in the United States Air Force. His father before him, Benjamin O. Davis Sr., was the first Black general in the United States Army. And then his father before him was the first Black employee of the Department of the Interior in the Pentagon. So what I want you to realize is that over the course of 5 generations, everyone was able to start from where they were and help expand and elevate and share the ripple effect of change. So I'm going to start back really quickly to tell you how people in this particular family moved to work with 10 different presidential administrations, one family, to help change the laws and rules to scale out opportunities for people of color. So it starts 150 years ago with a gentleman by the name of Lewis Davis. Lewis Davis actually was born as a piece of property, and he was enslaved on a plantation in Virginia. And Ulysses S. Grant, who was just becoming president of the United States, went to the plantation with his best friend, General Logan, who you may know from Logan Airport or Logan Circle or Logan Square. And they went to a plantation to pick up a horse at the recommendation of Ulysses S. Grant's son. And while he was picking up the horse, General Logan saw a young boy on the plantation and asked if he could buy him off and give this young boy his freedom. And as they walked off the plantation, Grant with the horse and Logan with the young boy, the owner of the plantation said, "Everything that leaves my plantation has to have my last name." His last name was Davis, and that is the beginning of Lewis Davis. He grew up in the home of General Logan as a young child and almost like a servant, a houseboy that General Logan had brought in. He then became Ulysses S. Grant's babysitter for his oldest son and did so well at the job, they offered him a role in the White House, first as a worker, then he got a job at the Department of the Interior, and he helped build out and scale the United States Post Office. His house was co-signed by General Logan, and he was the first real estate owner in Washington, D.C. that was Black. So he stayed there and had a child, and his child had one request for his dad. He did not want to work in government. He said, "Dad, government is stale. I don't want to work in that. But what I do want to do is I want to go into the Army. Can you do me a huge favor and ask General Logan if he can give me the 2 signatures to get into West Point? Because you have to be signed in by a general and you have to be signed in by a congressman." And when he went to go get the 2 signatures from General Logan, he was told that he could not allow a Black into West Point Military Academy because it was still segregated. So this young man, Benjamin O. Davis Sr., tells his dad he is running away from home. He takes a one-way train ride to Wyoming, and he joins a group of soldiers called the Buffalo Soldiers. He becomes the leader of the Buffalo Soldiers. He gets promoted to officer. He then finds a wife, gets married, and his wife dies during childbirth. And he is a single dad who's raising a young son. His son tells him, "Dad, all I want to do is become a pilot." And he said, "It's illegal for Blacks to fly. The only way you can become a pilot is if we can get you into West Point, the university that did not let me in. And the only way we can get you in is we have to get a signature of an officer and a congressperson." There was one Black officer in America, himself, and there was one Black congressperson. He sells the family house in Washington, D.C., all of his property, relocates the family to Washington, D.C., so he could live in the district to get the 1 signature, and gets his son into West Point Military Academy. When his son arrives to West Point Military Academy, they tell him they did not know he was Black. They tell him to wait till he has a room assigned, and they come back and give him keys to a room that was a converted janitor's closet. The next day, he wakes up and he hears all the cadets go to a meeting, and they say, "We accidentally let a Black in West Point. You are to treat him as if he is invisible until he drops out." He went to West Point for 50 weeks a year for 4 years in a row with no human interaction. Nobody called him when he raised his hand. He had no friends. He was not allowed to go in the library. He went through all 4 years and was supposed to graduate in the top third of his class. and they pull him into the commandant's office and tell him they would rather give him an honorable discharge and tell him to start a law firm than to have him become a Black officer in the United States. He refused, and on this photo that you're looking at right here are the only 2 Black officers in the entire military out of 350,000 soldiers at the start of World War II were my grandfather and great-grandfather. Every decision that you make in your life reverberates and makes change for others and evolves the conversation. He then graduates from West Point, and his dad becomes an advisor for President Truman. And he tells President Truman, the only way Blacks are going to believe in the United States Army is if they are treated equally and paid fairly. And he wrote Executive Order 9981, which mandated equal treatment of all races in the United States military in the 1940s. Once that was written, he said, we have to ensure that this is upheld and create a Black fighter pilot unit. And the Black fighter pilot unit could only be led by the only other officer in the United States that was Black, and that was Ben Davis Sr.'s son. And this is the actual picture of the first man of color ever to fly an airplane in the United States of America. He would go on to be relocated to Tuskegee, Alabama, and he would go on to lead and create the Tuskegee Airmen, which many of you may have heard of and many of you may be familiar with. And on the nose of his plane, he wrote the words "by request" as a subtle and not so subtle reminder that diversity and difference elevates the conversation, and that he was there by request of the President of the United States. He was the person who painted the tails red on the back of all the Red Tails planes as they flew over. He got 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, and then they forced him to retire, where he then worked at the Pentagon. And he was the only Black person on the executive committee of the Nixon administration, the Carter administration. He was the only one. And there he became the Secretary of Transportation. And he created 4 things that we all know and hear about all the time: the United States Air Marshal Program, the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, airport security, and planes locking doors. And I tell you all this to let you know that the stories that we hear may not be the stories that are out there. And all of these things are part of American history. And these are the shoulders that I stand on when I talk to you about diversity and inclusion. In 1998, Bill Clinton retroactively gave him his 4th star, and he became America's first 4-star general that was Black. He paid for my college. He bought me my first car. He taught me how to golf. And in his passing, I now work with the Air Force Academy and West Point to help dedicate and honor people of color in the monuments and the buildings at these organizations and schools. And I want to let you know that is the perspective that I come to you from when we talk about diversity and inclusion. And it's important that you have to put diversity in your everyday life, the actions that you take. And it's important that you engage in this type of work and realize it reverberates, but it could take generations. But all of the power that you have where you stand today comes with you and how you think and your opinion, which is uniquely yours. So today I work on Madison Avenue. I work on the corner of 45th and Madison in the heart of New York City. And I work for an advertising agency. And the advertising agency is called TBWA. We have 300 offices around the world, and we make some of the most popular commercials that you may have seen before. We make the television commercials for Apple. We create and make the television commercials for Nissan, for Gatorade. And we help and ensure that all of the ads are diverse. The stars of the ads, the colors of the hands, everything is about including all of our audiences and the tapestry in the messages of our time to build creativity and connectivity. So I am a chief diversity officer, and the first question or the most asked question that I get is typically, what is a CDO? Well, a chief diversity officer is someone who manages diversity and culture at a company or at an institution and aligns with the other executives at the company and has an equal footing and equal say and a voice and a vote in the process of how we conduct what we do. And the challenge with diversity, unlike other departments, is it's too much choir, not enough pulpit. People that love diversity talk about it and they celebrate it and they show up. I have a joke, they show up for the opening of an envelope. People that do not like diversity always find a way and a reason. So I want to give you some insight into our world and how we do this. So a little bit of a throwback. So I thought I was going to play football in college, but I was actually the worst football player that the coach had ever seen. And he tells me, Doug, I think you'd be better off if you were a cheerleader. So I became a male cheerleader. And this was an industry that was 97% women and 3% men. And I got to understand the differences of how people are treated. I then drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Some of you guys may be familiar with this. This is America's first mobile marketing car. I drove it to all 48 continental states, and that helped me understand the tapestry that is America. I then worked in entertainment, like Dr. Jones said. I was tour manager for Britney Spears. I worked with the Hilfiger family on some of their businesses, and then I became an executive for Magic Johnson Enterprises. And after that, I worked to help with the strategy on the Barack Obama's first presidential campaign. So I look at diversity from a really wide angle of experiences that have happened to me through my life. And the important thing to realize of why diversity matters, and if you take only one thing away from what we talked about today, people learn from difference, but they're comforted by commonality. And this is the big challenge. People always look to hire themselves, promote themselves, go lunch with themselves. Why do you think Austin Powers was so popular? Everybody loved Mini-Me. That was everybody's dream. But in order to grow ourselves and to grow the school and to help make the HCC community bigger, we need to look at differences in hiring, and differences in all of the activities we do. It's not about amplifying the same voice and message. It's about adding and inserting different voices and messages in our everyday actions. A question that I frequently get is, what is the difference between diversity and inclusion? Well, diversity is actually when you invite different people to the party, but inclusion is inviting those people to sing and dance. Just having a lot of different people in the room is really not helpful if you're not taking the input and using it to grow and to elevate the whole educational ecosystem that you're creating and preparing. All those amazing and talented students like Courage and everyone else that goes to the school, they are bringing in diverse voices. All of the administration, all the work that you're doing as you create new areas around the campus and disability inclusion gets added and all these great things are getting added. Now we have to give all of those voices votes, and that's inclusion, and that's the most important part. So when I started, just to give you a peek into how to think about this when you leave here, diversity is almost like an operating system, okay? It's like everyone's brain phone, and now we have to download a new operating system on it. And so when we started in the advertising industry, and this can give you some insight on maybe ways to think about this in your world, in your home life, in your professional life, at the school, we looked at diversity as if it was a client. So because we make ads for clients, what would happen is if diversity was looked at and appeared as a client, what would we actually do? And what we came up with is that we need to tie diversity in and humanize it. It is not something that you can just throw around there as a science. It must be humanized. So let's just go through the word just a little bit. When you hear the word diversity in America, typically it means people of color, LGBT, women, age, religion. But when you talk about diversity around the world, it's typically women equality first, and it's LGBT first. So it's a unique word because if you ask 50 people to tell you what the word is, they give you 50 different definitions. But again, going back to comforted by similarities, people typically look at diversity in the lens that they're experiencing it. But the important thing to remember is it's really about intersectionality. It's about all the different parts of diversity coming together in one area so you can help build and grow and foster and elevate and maximize the opportunity, because the best ideas come from the most inputs, and the most inputs come from the most diverse people around the table. And this is on every single level, all the way from the first student who steps foot on campus on day one, all the way to the longest tenured professor and doctor that you have. Everything matters because diversity is ultimately everything in our culture. But what's ended up happening, particularly here in America, every year, diversity has a different hot button issue. So just looking back across the last 5 years, you could see in 2013, one thing came up around diversity. And in 2015 was Oscars So White, then the presidential election, then Me Too came, then Pride turned 50, then same-sex marriage hit, then the pandemic hit, next year's disability. So it's a lot to understand. But what I want everyone here to do is let's just realize that this is just the beginning, and your education on this is going to continue to evolve. So I'm going to break down really quick 3 areas of diversity that I want you to look at when you think of HCCC, okay? 1/3 is about workforce, okay? These are the people that we hire, who we bring in to be professors, to be administrators, to have other tasks. This is a super important part of the conversation because diversity is really about the people, okay? The people are so important because the people are the ones that help make the community what it is. They are the fabric. But if other schools aren't focused on diversity and you have to keep replacing or bringing in different administrators and professors, then what are you supposed to do? And what we found was look at alternative industries and find people with a passion. And we call these people slashers. So these are people that may be really interested in advertising / work in a different industry. And a lot of people now out there have a passion to educate and a passion to inspire, but may work in a different industry. So think about all the open job recs and all the open people that you have. This is where the conversation starts, but you can't hire who you don't interview. So it's important that you have a wide pool of interviews and you give more time for different people to have those opportunities. So we use something called jury test. So the jury test is an opportunity to ask yourself, does your department look like the same breakdown as if you go to jury duty? So that's just a quick, simple way and a way to look at this when you're hiring. The next part around diversity is the supply chain. So think about all the money that the school writes checks to different businesses and different companies for services. So one of the areas that a lot of people don't talk about is the area of supplier diversity. So think about, as you undergo a new website and you look at all of the photos and the messages and all the companies that you're going to hire, let's look at that in a way where we can build and give more opportunities to women and multicultural businesses. So there's an acronym that I want everyone out here to learn, and it's called MWBE, and it stands for Minority and Women Business Enterprises, okay? I don't like the word minority, I like the word multicultural, but that's the actual government name. So MWBE make up 52% of every business in the United States of America. So if you think about it, over half of every company in America is owned, operated, and controlled by a woman or a person of color. But when it comes to where the money goes, the breakdown is only 6%, because schools, because universities, because private businesses, public sector do not give equal opportunity. So this is a chance where you can look at the HCCC community and say, hey, what can we do to realign to help support some different businesses and inject diversity in an economic way within the organization? And if the whole country did that together, we would actually move $1 trillion to diverse audiences. So it's important to understand that. And the third and final area that I want to cover on is belonging. It's important to realize that belonging is everything. How do you feel in the environment that you currently work in? How does it feel when you look around and see everyone around you? Are you entering people that are on the come up for different awards? What conferences are you attending? Who are we celebrating? Who are we recognizing? So belonging is one of the most important parts of the entire diversity ecosystem. It's great to bring people in and it's great to support these businesses and spend money, but what's even better is that you must help the people that are there and look within. So there's something that Google does that I want to share with you just to give you a little bit of insight. And what they do is they actually look at all of their diverse employees, like we were talking about earlier, a survey, and they look at all the data and they say, what employees are happier here? What employees need different things than other employees? And they take a sentiment chart to feel out how all of the diversity and inclusion feels as it's practically implemented in the organization. So this is an interesting thing that they're doing. Another thing that's working really well to make people feel like they belong is reciprocal programming. Can you create a content series on Instagram or LinkedIn? Can you make a podcast? Can you interview people? How can you use creative means of digital content and have that get posted online to encourage different voices to look at the college, to encourage different voices to look at your resume, to encourage different voices to contact you? This is an important part of the belonging experience. One of the things that I did is I started a podcast and brought diverse voices in and listened to what they had to say, and people really enjoyed it. I can't speak about certain issues, but other people can. And then unconscious bias training is an important part of belonging. How can we remove things that we were born with or subconsciously acquired in our lifetime? How can we be aware of those changes and find a way to evolve around them? The next area is, because when it comes to unconscious bias, the next area is sharing things socially that you're doing, merchandising, and putting in succinct words different things that college is doing so you can have a social media presence and elevate conversations around diversity and inclusion. Creating employee resource groups and student resource groups is an amazing way to build community and connectivity and help make people feel that there's others going through similar situations and others that need that support in your time. And the important thing to realize is, as America evolves, as our student bodies change, as more exciting people travel across borders, and more races and cultures and creeds become aware of the power of education. That stat this morning that 1 in 5 people, only 1 in 5 young people have the opportunity to go to college. This is a huge statistic, and we have to realize that having no diversity IQ, not downloading the operating system, is only going to have a larger and longer financial impact on the future of not only the school, but your own life and your personal life. So it's important to realize that element of this as well. So I leave you with this. This is just the beginning. This is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning. And as we sit here and we left time, Lalisa and the doctors and Uris and everyone left time for Q&A. And what I wanted to do is not sit here with you the whole time and just talk to you about things that have happened or ways to do things, but really open up the floor and ask anybody if they have any questions, anything that's coming up, any ideas that have had roadblocks, talk about any of the new programs or practices at HCCC. I wanted to give that opportunity to you and open up the floor. And I also want to make sure that my LinkedIn address and all of my information is shared with you, because one of the things I want to do moving forward, with the community college is work with them and align with them in many different ways moving forward, so I can be an ally for the one school that has been the most aligned with my personal vision and my family's vision that I have come into. And I'm so appreciative of this opportunity to be here today, that I want to make sure that this is also the beginning for me and with the school, if they would have me, be more involved in some of the activities. So I want to open the floor for questions if anybody wanted to talk about anything in particular or bring anything up.
First of all, we want to just say thank you so much for delivering that powerful message, your story, your background, your knowledge on issues involving diversity, equity, and inclusion, talking about the workplace and institutions such as Hudson County Community College and all the work that has begun and continues, the leadership, buy-in, so many points you touched on, your history and your family, that progression there of being I love when you use the phrase, we are champions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think, that speaks volumes. The champion is a word that I've heard a lot from Dr. Freeman, constantly, reminding us, you want to be a champion. When you champion something, it just, it inspires people, it ignites people, it motivates people. So again, Doug Melville, we just thank you. Rashida, we thank her as well. So people are gathering their thoughts. I'm not sure if we're able to open their mic, so we might have to, but Willie can let me know that if we're able to open their mic so they can speak directly to you, because they're on a different platform, but we're all in the same room. But he'll let me know that. But I do want to direct people to start to load your questions up. Certainly those of us who are here, a part of this panel, we can speak right to you. But I want people to put their questions in the chat. I would want you to put them in the Q&A area, and that's an area right near the chat area for those of you who have not used that yet in WebEx. It is there, but some of you have. However, if you have to put it in the chat, do that as well, and then I'll go over there and start monitoring that, and I can bring those questions to you, Doug or yours or anybody else who can read the chat can do that. But also just wanted to, again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for pouring out to us today. Thank you for allowing Hudson to be the first.
Yeah, I'm going to put a Hudson HCCC on my wall. This is it. Yes. The wall of fame we got here. And I want to come visit you in person in real life, as soon as we have the opportunity and things free up. I would love to actually come meet the students or host a town hall or anything that I can do, whether virtually or, in real life as well.
We could do something in real life. We have the technology, we have the social distancing parameters, and our facilities leader has made all that happen. So we can certainly put that together. So, all right, everyone, just, feel free. Doug, I'll turn it back over to you. I just want to give that, that thank you right there, just to set the stage, and just really appreciate your sharing your knowledge and your information and your talent, your family, your background, what you've been through. Wow. That's some deep stuff. And we want to thank your grandparents and your ancestors for their service to this country. Wow.
And I think one of the things I want to let everybody here know is just to say that really take the time to look into your family, really take the time to understand, because all the stories that certain people's families went through are all part of American history. And sometimes they weren't written down and sometimes they weren't really acknowledged. So this is a unique opportunity to really look within sometimes and understand your own family diversity and all of the pioneers that were before us that did so much work in this area. And it wasn't a job, it was just something you had to do. But now we're given the opportunity to fine tune it and elevate it even more. And the more we create these programs and these forums to talk about it, the more opportunity we have to work together and build that connective tissue to add some inspiration and some perspiration. You know, all of this takes a little extra work, but the thing is, everybody's actions matter. If that one man doesn't get on the train to Wyoming because he hears about the Buffalo Soldiers, quite literally, he doesn't become an officer, he doesn't have a son, and there's no one that goes through West Point, and there is no Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, it's like everyone's moves and actions do matter on such a big level.
Hi, Doug. Can you hear me? This is Daryl. I have a question. Doug, you've done extensive work with a variety of companies. What information can you share with us would be pitfalls or obstacles that we may need to be aware of, or things to stay away from that deter our efforts in being more diverse, inclusive, and equitable? What are some of those typical pitfalls that you commonly find across various industries for those who are moving in this way?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is there's something called the rule of threes. So the rule of threes states if there's not three of an underrepresented group at times in any environment, people typically have the inclination to leave that environment. So if you're the only one or the first one, if there's only two of you, more often than not, you're going to find a way in the time and passion, and you will leave the organization to find somewhere where there's more like-minded individuals. So I think the first thing is really identify the rule of threes. Okay, that's super important. Another area, which is something that I know you're working so extensively on, but it's really important, and that's really disability inclusion. That sometimes is overlooked at such grand scale, and those individuals are the ones that need the help, but they don't necessarily need a handout, they just need a hand up. And I think that's another big assumption, is that diversity is some type of program to give handouts and things of that nature. But the reality is it's just a program to level the playing field and reach out to somebody and bring them in. You know, a lot of people don't feel comfortable crossing bridges and have an unknown on the other side. So this is a chance for people to say, hey, we're signaling change by creating this incredible disability inclusion practice. We're signaling change by building this committee. We're signaling change, and those signals are the first step to help attract different voices and opinions. And this moment to do this is so critical, because now we're in a point after the pandemic where we're in an evolution. So the revolution was the pandemic, was social justice, was empathy. Now we have to integrate that into our everyday practices to signal. And I think ignoring the big important areas, I call them public displays of inclusion, PDI. You have to have these as an organization to ensure that the messages that you create are inclusive of all the different voices that create the community that you work in and that you strive in. So those are kind of some of the pitfalls there. I think there's also a little bit of a unconscious bias that diversity means less than, when I would argue it means greater than, because people had to face challenges that you will never see. And the analogy I like to use is that if one person was walking down a wind tunnel and one person was walking without wind, and you both arrived there, how would you describe the wind and what happened to you? You would say, well, something was like, it was a lot harder. It was, you know, things were blowing in my face. And the other person's going, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't see anything. Why do you look like that? What happened? And they're like, the wind. And I think part of the times diverse executives, administrators, teachers, students have gone through a journey that is much more challenging and causes you to dig deeper and have much bigger faith. And then when you arrive there, people still assume diversity is less than, not greater than. So I think that's an important thing to think about when we talk about this conversation and some of the pitfalls. You know, one of the areas that the Tuskegee Airmen had to deal with was that their pilots' tests were twice as hard as the other pilots' tests for every other pilot in the United States military. So when they passed, they were actually a much more elite group of pilots. They weren't less than, they were greater than. But the perception was, because of who they were and because their experiences were different and unrelatable, they could not be better than the other individuals here, when it's just they weren't given a fair and equal chance to do it. So I think that's important too.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you so much. And we do have a question coming from the Q&A area. So thank you all for putting your questions there. I know that Willie is also working to get people to the mic, but you would have to get him the information that he put in the chat. But the question from the Q&A is coming from Joseph Gallo. He says, last night, President Trump said he had done more for Black people than any president other than Lincoln. And he's paraphrasing. And he says to you, Doug, do you feel that it is true that he promotes diversity in this country?
Well, I think when you start talking about presidential politics, the challenge is 40% of the country likes one person, 40% of the country likes another person, and 20% is undivided. So I think it's hard to change minds of people and who they like. But what I would say is that the presidential debate last night, I think what you realize is when you had the primaries, all of the diversity on stage was very palpable. And whether the diverse candidate won or didn't win is irrelevant. There was an option and there was a choice. And although we live in a republic where you vote and vote and vote until we get to where we are today, the fact of the matter is there's really singular voices on stage that are making the laws for an entire nation of 330 million different people. And I think when you start looking at, did this president do something better or this president do something worse, what you get into is you get into the details and the weeds and the tactics, and you don't get into the strategy. And I think when we look at our vote and we look at the opportunity that we have in front of us, how can we scale and think forward and also start looking at the 500,000 elected officials in the United States of America. So there's 500,000 elected officials in the US, from local comptroller to mayor to local fire and police chief. It's important that we look at the presidential election, but don't get too in the weeds, but we actually look at ourselves and see where can we run for office and begin to make change on a local level to help affect our communities and help affect the laws that surround us and that involve us every single day. And we take this energy of the presidential election, which is so divisive, and turn that into an actionable item. Going to volunteer at the polls if you can, and it's okay with your health. Participating in a local campaign, trying to get a friend or a neighbor elected. Use this energy and encourage yourself to vote with your feet and start making some substantive change.
Okay, thank you very much. We have more questions for you. We have another question coming from Veronica Gerasimo, and her question is, what recommendations do you have to ensure that our curriculum and programming embodies representation and diversity? Additionally, how can we ensure our learning outcomes, assignments, and syllabi embodies diversity and promotes equity in access?
Well, I think the first, I want to say, Veronica, that is a great question. Thank you so much. What I would say is the first step begins with the 2020 Convocation. And I say this really honestly. The fact that Hudson Community has dedicated the theme, the speaker, the narrative, and the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion for their first virtual convocation is a huge sign of what we talked about. And number one is the support of the leadership in this area. So that's the number one most important thing. Now, when it comes to the books and the criteria, I would say start with centers of excellence. If there's one department, if there's one class, if there's one particular area that is showing a recalibrated literature and syllabus and everything around diversity and inclusion, can we take that area and use that to make a map and then go to other areas in the college and figure out ways we can now look at all the curricular in that area in the same way? So it's almost an exercise from within. You have to self-police all the policies, all the syllabuses, and I think that's part of the opportunity and part of the challenge, is that all of the change that you want to see across those areas has to be made by the individuals on this call right now and the individuals that are taking time out of their day to elevate the conversation, but also to look within to find the changes in this area. So the important thing I would say is we have to review all the material one at a time as a college and find ways and create systems and practices that we can implement to help evolve the conversation.
Okay, so thank you so much for that answer. We have a few more questions still coming in, and thank you all for submitting your questions. We have Rosa Perez asks, what would you say to those who are divided about voting?
Well, I would say that a lot of people don't like the Electoral College because they feel like their vote doesn't count. If you look at the history of why we vote on Tuesday, it was so farmers could have enough time to get to the center of town. We never made it a holiday. You know, there's all kinds of, inconsistencies, gerrymandering. Eric Holder, our former our former U.S. Attorney General, has an entire organization set up to look at how voting has been manipulated. But on a local level, with the laws that affect you the most, voting does matter way more than you believe it does. Voting on the police chief, you're voting on the fire chief, you're voting on the mayor, you're voting on the comptroller, you're voting on the alderman. All of these roles help change the laws in your direct neighborhood. So as far as I'm concerned, everyone should vote. It's free. More people are aware this year than ever before. If you're a first-time voter, elevate those individuals. Let's have a first-time voter party. Let's have some, juice and cookies. Hello, maybe not. But what we need to do is put a little something in it to get people excited about voting and being a part of this conversation. So my answer is unequivocally, you must vote. You must vote.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another question I'm going to read from the Q&A area. Then we're going to open up the mic for one of our faculty members to ask his question in person. But this next question is coming from Jeff Roberson. Jeff Roberson says, I'm the Director of Contracts and Procurement. I'm a champion of supplier diversity and have been in procurement for 25 plus years. Air Force veteran, Hudson County Community College is in the process of joining the New York, New Jersey.
Oh, wow. Yes. All right. Go ahead. NYNG.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes. And as an FYI, I'm going to get to his question. It's coming in a second. He says, as an FYI, one of the biggest challenges for HCCC is that we have to comply with New Jersey Community College contract law, which currently does not allow for supplier diversity.
Oh.
What experience have you had in getting state legislation changed?
Well, actually, I just learned from your question, because I didn't know colleges could be part of New York, New Jersey, MSDC. So that was my first time. Last year, I hosted their gala actually, because I work so closely with them and so many businesses. So if you ever need anything or to talk to anyone over there, please, let me know. But as it relates to state legislation, I really don't know the answer to that. I think the longest solution answer would be we have to figure out who votes for that law in the local community or throughout the state and figure out how we can either get it on the ballot as an amendment or figure out the process through the voting system. So I think that's one of the areas that we should really see if there's some opportunity or some focus on, is what we could do locally. I think the first area is if we could find the process to change it, maybe the community college gets together and makes this a North Star for the school. Maybe everyone gets together in this first great year starting today, moving forward for the community college. And we say, we, as the part of the community, want to help make the change and allow community colleges. And then you become the change that you want to see. Other than that, I really don't know how the state legislature picks that. But I am happy to hear from you, especially as a veteran for 25 years in the United States Air Force, and also someone that has dedicated their life to procurement contracts and ensuring open and fair bidding practices. So I think that's really important as well.
So thank you so much. We got some really powerful questions coming through. But now I want to see if Professor Michael Furlise, if your mic is open, you can ask your question. I believe you are unmuted, so go right ahead.
Thank you, Lalisa. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, Doug. Real pleasure to hear your discussion here, and very interesting personal biography, which is, we hear that sometimes from our own members, but it's really great to have a speaker with that background. In either case, so my question is, and it may not be as clear as it should be, I'm sorry, but, I guess we're dealing with issues that we would years ago call a piece of the pie. And, you mentioned things about unconscious bias training and things like that. And I know a lot of our institutions are trying to figure out ways to make us more aware of it. I guess my background, I'm a sociologist, so I'm kind of concerned about these sort of what we might call deeply entrenched forms of resistance, or the purposeful monopolization of resources by groups. Those groups could be classes, economic classes. It could be men. It could be the police. And I think maybe one of the examples that you raised with women is a good one to look at. And I kind of want to know what your view is on how do we address some of this. So, for example, we noticed for women, you raised the high-tech area. So there's been an awful lot of discrimination against women in the high-tech areas, and we know that very few of them reach up to the corporate level. But even before that, very few get PhDs in STEM. And as we go down the ladder, sociologists know that young women are very interested in science and technology and excel in those classes. But there's something very subtle going on with sort of eliminating them in the process of getting into these higher realms of corporate America or leadership or even our classes. Schools and colleges, for example, aren't excluded from this by any means. We have young women who become teachers. They're more populated at elementary schools, middle schools, and as we go up to colleges, we have less and less women who are, in the professorial position of teaching at colleges and universities. So my long-winded statement here is a question is, how do we deal with these more deeply entrenched groups like police, the police unions have played a major role in preventing the transformation of policing with Black Lives Matter. And I say this as a union president, but it's an unsavory aspect, I think, of how particularly white police, but not only white police, have been able to sort of maintain a very narrow self-interest of their own group. So to me, these have been issues that have gone on for maybe 40 or 50 years and have proven themselves quite resistant to change. Even if we change our attitudes, it seems like those groups identify their interests over these larger social interests of diversity and equity. So how do we address that? It seems very, very challenging.
Well, I think how's my office?
Good, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
I'll mute my mic. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. There was just some feedback. I wasn't sure. But the first thing I would say is it really starts with the most basic thing is you can't hire who you don't interview. So I think on the beginning of the long tail, the first thing I would say is you cannot hire who you don't interview. That's the first thing. And you have to look at the interview process very strategically. If there's less women in the organization that you would like, you need to interview 75% women for every open job, and then they will get hired at a much higher rate. But typically places will interview one of an underrepresented group in every interview pool, but not three. So it goes back to the law of threes that we just talked about briefly. If you have 3 in the interview process, there's a great Harvard business study that says that they will get hired at a 50 to 75% rate, but we're not interviewing. So that's the external kind of entry level feed the pipeline problem, or challenge, I should say. But the biggest challenge is actually succession plans and promotions. People that are underrepresented typically don't get the votes within an organization, maybe within a school or institution, as you were referring to, maybe even in the police academy or in the police force. But people historically do not give or allow the earned promotions or through succession planning underrepresented people to have the same opportunity for upward mobility and advancement within the organization. And each organization has to handle this in their own way. When you make big group sweeping statements about changes that will happen, it's hard to really implement those because each big sweeping change is broken down with many, many small changes. And when you look at the differences on how institutions are set up, who's in charge, how long people have been there, who's tenured, who's not tenured, you know, what the capabilities are of the organization. Like just learning that you can't have a supplier diversity program changes your relationship with the local community of diverse vendors because now there's no formalized program. So each thing does affect how that affects the community and also the institution. But I bring that up to say, when you look at what you can do to change it, again, it's about looking inside and just looking at the HCCC community and saying, what can we do to help evolve the process? Now, one thing you should know is that the average change takes 3 years for short-term changes or middle term and 7 years for full changes, because you have to have this happen naturally through the course of the evolution of your organization. And in this case, the HCCC, it's going to take 1 year for short term, 3 year for short, medium term, and 7 year for long term if you want to evolve. And that's just how long it takes. So it has to start today. It has to start with small steps. All of the actions that we talked about here today are so important. And, you know, I really want to be an ally with you through this journey, because what you're doing is really so far ahead of other schools. And a lot of schools don't know what to do, or they're taking the hands-off approach. And I think there's something else that's been coming up a lot in language, and I just want to put that out here, is that there's a difference between anti-racist and not racist. And I want to just take a little bit of time to talk about that. Anti-racist means that you actively raise your hand and participate anytime you see something that doesn't seem equally fair for the parties involved. Anti-racist is that you don't participate. I'm sorry, not racist is you don't participate in anything like that. But if you see it, you don't actually raise your hand to make that change. So I think part of it is taking our mindsets and seeing how can we be a part of the change that we want to see within the organization, and what can we do to kind of take everyday actions in small baby steps so we can help change the evolution of opportunity for people within the organization. Like I said, through promotions, through succession planning, or also through the processes of how things are developed and how things are designed.
Thanks. That's a really great response. But I know you can't see it, but I'm nodding my head up and down as you're speaking. So.
Okay, I know I cannot see it. I see.
I appreciate it.
I see 9 amazing human beings right now. They have been staying with me all since the beginning.
A great response. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Lalisa, you're on mute. That old trick.
Sorry, but thank you so much, Michael, for your question. This is being recorded. People can go back and listen. We're so honored to that you told us that you would also, be around for other subsequent type discussions and what have you. But we do have a few more questions that we definitely want to get to. And again, we can't thank Dr. Friedman enough. I mean, when you suggested that we have the speaker, I just really appreciate your finding Melville, because we can all see how valuable. But one question says, this is a quick one. I don't know if you'll have to answer this one right away, but I just didn't want to leave this person out. Said, when are you going to create a documentary that your story is so deep and inspirational that it should not just be limited to presentations? So you can go, get back to that one. But these other questions are pretty significant. So one person wanted to know, and then you can take them I'll just read them and for others to hear, and then you could take them as you see them as well. But one, and this was a student, now works full-time with Hudson. How can you convince minority communities to vote when most underprivileged communities don't vote because they have been convinced that their vote just doesn't matter? And how do we make that change? How do we convince them? So that's coming from the student, was a student, but he's now full-time now. And then another person wanted to know, Natalia said, Doug, can you speak to needed proper compensation and the relation to the practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the lack of adequate compensation contributes to the inequity gap and works against the mission? And then following that question, if you would address another question from Dr. Paula Roberson, who says there are different winds, undercurrents, and thermals that flow in organizations. Currently, the high winds set the overriding tone. And then how does an organization legitimately and productively address experiences within their organization that may be diametric?
Okay, so I want to say
diametrically.
Okay. Okay, I'll start with the first and then I'll go into the last and then go backwards. But actually, the family story, part of it, the entire family story is being, I wrote actually a movie and a documentary that's, close to getting picked up by some great people. That's nice to see. So hopefully the larger story will come out. But in January, I'm actually working with Robin Roberts, who you may be familiar from ABC Good Morning America. But her dad was a Tuskegee Airman. And actually, there's some other individuals that you may be familiar with who also dads or were Tuskegee Airmen as well. So Tom Joyner, the radio host out of the South, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, not on anymore, but had been on for many years. His dad was a Tuskegee Airman. Robin Roberts' dad was a Tuskegee Airman. George Lucas, the film director and producer, his wife, his father was a Tuskegee Airman, and he's the one who created the movie Red Tails. So actually, Robin Roberts' production company is called Rockin' Roberts, and they're actually producing a documentary that'll air this January on the History Channel of the different individuals and their children and their families in different areas where they have become leaders in the area of diversity and inclusion. So I'll send that around. Maybe we can have a little viewing party. Maybe I could get Robin Roberts to come by because she wants to talk about this subject more as well. So she's been a really big advocate of that. The last question, I'm going to go to the last question by Paula Robertson and just talk about, and just to repeat it, about the different winds and undercurrents in an organization and how those override the tone, and how can an organization legitimately and productively address experiences within the organization that may be diametrically opposed. So one of the things that's been very helpful in this area, and I just want to make it as a suggestion, is actually setting up listening circles. If there's ever a time to hear from staff or set up open Zooms where people could share experiences, that's also a way to kind of have people have their voices become elevated. Another thing is there's a tool that a lot of different schools and companies are using now called Tiny Pulse, which actually links. It's like Twitter, but it goes to one or two people in HR. So it's anonymous conversations about people that work at a place, and then they can get the feedback to HR. So if somebody's doing something or a situation's happened, you can communicate it back. I think the first thing, again, is dedicating the convocation to diversity, equity, and inclusion is the first step to let everybody know how serious we are at the college. So I think that's the first most important thing. And I think that's the step where now you can pull people aside or let people know stories that you may have wanted to share but didn't know who to bring them with. Perhaps set up group listening circles to take in more information from different people in that like. So I think that's one of the ways to do it. But again, because change is really about evolution and evolution takes time, it may be a little bit more time than something just happening overnight, but let's plant the seeds and watch them grow and create the new policies we want to see. Going back to the question, Hazma's question, how do you convince minority communities to vote? Most underprivileged communities don't vote because they haven't been convinced that their vote matters and how to make the change. I think you just have to tell people that, you know, it's like one of those things like, where can you see the result of education? Where can you see the result of voting? I mean, some people may never really come around to it, but we have to make sure and ensure. So there's almost 100 million people in the United States of America and 20 million or so didn't vote. So it's like the whole election would be different. So it's really about the masses and getting them together, but it's not an easy sell actually to everyone. But all you can do is the best you can. If I had one piece of advice, it would be spend twice as much time with the people that believe in you and half as much time trying to convince the naysayers that you're worthy. So I think you can only bring people so far, but it's your responsibility to drive ahead and look forward. I'm not sure the question before that, but I did want to answer this one question in the notes, Lalisa, if you didn't mind, about proper compensation for diversity.
That's the next question.
Oh, okay.
That was the other question.
Okay, so this question is, can you speak to the proper compensation in the relation of the practice of DEI and how the lack of adequate compensation contributes to the inequity gap and works against the mission of DEI itself? So one of the things that we have to realize, just like the story that I shared earlier about my family, is sometimes you have to create the role, and the people who benefit the most from it are the people that come behind us. The reality of the situation is we are creating the diversity and inclusion role. It did not exist. There is no college degree in it. Now there is quite recently, but there hasn't been a college degree in it. There hasn't been a master's in it. Companies were unaware of what they needed to do with it. So the unfortunate reality in a for-profit or educational environment, new roles are not necessarily valued at the same rate of existing roles because there's no historical context of the result. So the challenge is, how can you encourage people to participate in efforts around DEI when it could be looked at as divisive? And I want to share really quickly how that is broken down. If people of color or people with a disability or people that have any what is considered a underrepresented tendency or ethnicity or race or religion or disability see the opportunity in their environment to make a change, them being asked to make the change in addition to doing their job is considered by some, it's something that's called the diversity tax. Why are the people that are most underrepresented also asked to do an additional job? That is one way to look at it. But the same exact way on the other side is, why do we, people that are diverse, have to wait for the quote unquote white savior to come in and save us at the same time? So I bring this up, and I'm sorry to use this divisive language, but this is how we talk about it in a corporate environment. It's a complex one way or another. If someone goes out of their way to help you, half the people say, look at this person just trying to help me for their own gain. And half of the people say, thank you so much, I appreciate it. And for the people that have to put in the work as DEI executives, half the people say, I would love to do it because I want to further the mission for myself and my family behind me. And half of the people say, I'm not going to do an additional job or work because I'm not getting paid or compensated for it. And all I can say is what you get out of it is what you put into it. And if you have a privilege and you have a platform where you can make a change and change somebody's life, you should take the little bit of time, if you have it available, or find the time to reach back and elevate others behind you and build systems that will make it easier for your children and the generations that come after us, just like someone did it for us. There's no exact way to put your finger on this, is what makes it so hard. But the important part is everything starts at the top. The leadership here is evolving. The leadership across many different places around the country and the world are now looking at social justice and looking at evolving in their own way at the most important time in history, which is now, because we are here now. So this is just an opportunity to help grow and evolve it. And it's not to be looked at cynically. It's to be looked at as an opportunity to help grow and evolve those that come behind us.
Wow. Dr. Reaver, did you have a question, or any of the other panelists? You can open your mics on your own, and this is like, wow. So,
I didn't have a question. I really wanted to hear others' input, and this has been so really meaningful. And I think I want to share. I feel this is affirming for our community, because nearly everything that has been in the discussion, I think, has been in our discussion, and is at least work we are grappling with right now. And so for me, that's particularly meaningful. But what I also love is just the engagement and perspective. So I thank you. And Doug, thank you so much. We want very much, to the extent that you're amenable to it, to have you become a regular part of our community. You're an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. I would love to do that. I don't work with any schools, and if I had one, it would be the one that it brought me in. Dr. Friedman, he, pulled me from the rafters. He was like, guys, I'm going out to the parking lot. I'm gonna pull this guy in and airdropped it. He reached out to me. I do really, if I could just share the story of Dr. Friedman, but and I think this is a great story to share. At least this is how I'm more of a storyteller. So this is how I saw the story, although it didn't probably happen exactly like this, but in my own mind. But he reaches out to me on Instagram. Can I just tell you this? He had watched a TED Talk, and a lot of times people reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey, I've seen this or something of that nature. And he reached out to me on Instagram, and I said, what? I said, what? Any doctor that reaches out to me on Instagram is like, it was just elevated through. I mean, I can't even talk about it.
That's a story.
So I'm just saying, if you guys didn't know, Dr. Friedman was like, hey. And I said, you know what? And then he shared with me, we set up a phone call with the community, and he shared with me all the things you were doing, all the paperwork, all the new departments, all the new alignments. I mean, it was incredible, really. And particularly now when schools are all working from their own homes and everything is disconnected, people are not using this time to create and learn. They're using this time to spend 90% of the time on the problem and analyzing it, and only 10% of the time on the solution. Where the first thing I could hear from Dr. Friedman is that we're the inverse. We are going to spend 90% of the time on the solution. And we already have spent the 10% of the time analyzing, where we are today. But let's not, start daydreaming and gazing into the problem. Let's turn the energy towards the solution. And that was what really was the most sticky part of the conversation with the whole team, Uris and Dr. Jones and Lalisa and Dr. Friedman, and we talked again and again about all the different ways. So I just want to let you know that this is authentic, because the conversation and the connection from within was created in a way and was already set up in a way. There's a term that we use in advertising. It's called woke washing. And woke washing is when any institution or brand or company has the appearance that they care about diversity and inclusion just to sound good, but in reality is not taking the steps necessary to create and evolve the organization to become what they want it to be in the promise that they're saying. Woke washing is the biggest detriment to what we are doing, because you can't dictate who is real and who is just putting up the sign. There was a big study done last year about companies that support the Pride Parade. Almost half of the companies that supported a float in the Stonewall 50 Pride Parade don't allow same-sex marriages to have benefits on their benefit package. So it's like the companies want to show public displays of inclusion, but then when you turn the mirror back on yourself, they don't want to put in the work to create the policies and practices. So what was so different about what you were doing was it was a community-wide gathering. And for everyone on this call, you have to understand that everybody starts from where they are. And if you get a no, you just got to keep it moving. I remember when there's a family story that when Ben Davis Jr. arrived at West Point and was told that no one was going to talk to him for 50 days a week, 50 weeks a year, 4 years in a row. Think about you right now going to school for 50 weeks, because it was a year round at that time, and not one human interaction. When he sat down to eat lunch, everybody got up. When they had to go to the Army-Navy game, he had to ride on his own bus. He was not allowed to come in contact with anyone as he went to school. No study groups, no raises his hand. He ends up graduating in the top third of his class. And when he went to the commandant's office to talk to him about this, he said to the commandant, I would have graduated in the top 3 in the class, but you mandatory failed me in CPR, ballroom dancing, and boxing because you had to do that with 2 people. When he called his dad and said, Dad, he called his dad and said, Dad, I'm having a hard time getting through this. His dad said, there's 4 million Black Americans rooting for you to graduate. And he replied, it's too bad none of them are here now. And he had to put his mind on it. So for everyone out here who thinks it's impossible to do this, a single dad in the 1900s, it's all what you can overcome at the time. So you have to set your mind on one goal: graduating, getting a job, getting a career, getting a promotion. And you have to believe that you can do it, and look at it and circle it and get to that mission so you can get to the next level, and you can do it. And I'm so proud of everyone on this call. And, if anybody wants to follow up with me on LinkedIn or anything, I'm here for you, really.
Well, I do have a question for you. So, as one of the co-chairs for our President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I would like to know, if you were to, let's just say you were to get hired at Hudson, or you were visiting Hudson you came to Hudson as a student, and you had we have our policies. We might have policies and different procedures to follow about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You've read our website, you've read some of our literature materials, but about the people, what kinds of things would you want to see as a diversity champion and expert such as you are? What are some of the things if you were to visit, would you like to look for and say, you know what, that the way the people interact, I'm thinking more about that than just some policy or procedures to follow that states that we should be kind, be nice, and treat people well and respect others?
I think the first thing that I would look for is the support of student resource groups and educational centers and facilities around some areas of DE&I. You talked about a disability inclusion office, which is great. You're talking about diversity as the convocation theme. So again, I'm looking for all of these things that the university doesn't have to sell me. All they have to do is tell me. And I already know. When you're a comedian, they always tell you, if you have to explain a joke, it's not funny. If you have to explain what you're doing and you can't just show people, it's not enough. And sometimes good enough is not enough. Sometimes it's okay, but many times good enough is not enough. So this is an opportunity to really look at how we can support student groups and employee resource groups. So for student and faculty, how can we build and enhance and increase year over year, even if it's slightly, offices, committees, councils around DE&I to ensure that they not only take in the suggestions, but that there's enough money and resource to implement some of the suggestion. I would also ask, if I was a student, how do you define diversity, which I think is an important exercise that you should do as a college and around the campus, is actually how does the college define diversity? The next thing I would look at is, are there any school rooms that we can maybe name after some diverse individuals? Perhaps there's not monuments on campus, but perhaps there's halls, perhaps there's classrooms. So look at what you have around the college to see if maybe this is an opportunity to create some kind of new capital with some new names or some new flows. So that's always a great opportunity. I would look at who are your last 5 speakers at Convocation. I would say, is there a list of a certain number of presidents or promotions or people at the college that are visible that I can see? So I think a lot of these things are just kind of part of the conversation that as a student, I would be really inspired by. But I think the most inspiring thing would be a phone call on my first day from someone who worked at the school that just said, hey, I just want to let you know we're here and I acknowledge you and I'm an ally with you and I can't wait for you to come to campus and come to your first day at school. Because a lot of times a simple phone call is all people need, and mental health is another part of diversity and people are going through a lot of different things. So I think if a phone call was made instead of an email or a letter and a beautiful voicemail was left, that would be one of the most special things that I could get from signing up to go to HCCC and really being a part of the community.
Well, with that, we are almost at the end of our time, and I wasn't sure if you had any other parting words for the group. We're going to depart and go to lunch, and then others will come back for some workshops, and you are welcome to stay around for those as well. We want to definitely thank Rashida Peters for being here and assisting as well. But I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, Rashida works on my team. Maybe she could, Rashida, you could just maybe tell a little bit about your story and introduce yourself. She's been working with me for about a month.
Yeah, hi everyone. So honored to be here. As Doug mentioned, my name is Rashida Peters. As he mentioned as well, I just recently joined TBWA Worldwide about a month ago. So it's been a really exciting journey to work as part of the D&I initiative and program that we have here. I grew up and born and raised in Germany. My mom was German, and I grew up in the U.S. military community as well. So growing up within a diverse community and sometimes even taking it for granted and knowing that in a lot of ways, we have a lot more work to do. I think this has been a great opportunity for myself, and I'm so honored to be here today to help relate to this initiative as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rashida. Thank you so much. And thank you, Doug, for introducing us to her as well. And we've been communicating back and forth with her. So again, Daryl, if you or Dr. Freeman or yours or any of the other panelists have any other remarks, and we'll go to lunch after that.
Lisa, if I can.
Yes.
Doug, I just wanted to thank you for spending the morning with us and for the inspiration that you've provided. I wanted to ask, and that could be tied into one of the comments that you made earlier. It seems that a lot of this work has to deal with momentum. And I'm not just talking about the college. We're grateful to have the leadership and to have a community that really cares about this type of work. But when you look at the broader, the broader picture, one of the comments or questions that we always have when we have an event is this moment that we're living right now. You have the pandemic, you have civil unrest, social unrest, demand for social justice. What can we do to keep the momentum going? Because momentum is something that is either going up or is going down. And, if this is a movement, it's wonderful. But, some of us are afraid that it might be a moment. And again, I'm not talking about the college, I'm just talking about it in general, keeping in mind the global landscape. Thank you.
Yeah, well, momentum is so important. So it goes back to kind of the wind example. You can't see it at your back, but the momentum is what drives a lot of change. And we have to bottle it in our own communities, in our own ways, and we have to take it and use it to propel us forward and make those changes that we may have been on the sideline before about. Now, one thing that is happening is there is change fatigue. So people are also getting tired of changing so much, everything all the time, every day, all day, morning, noon, night, breakfast, lunch, dinner, change. But we have to find the room and make sure that we make the space to create the change and prioritize it. So maybe one of the things is one or two things that we do every year at the college, not 100 things, but 2 things big and many things small, just because you have to look at the marathon and the momentum has to drive us all 26.2 miles. We can't stop halfway and get a hot dog, although I am hungry and we have been running for 13 miles. But if we could just go halfway more, I would love it. But we got to keep the momentum going.
Okay, and on that note, there is one person, her mic is open, so I really want to speak, so take it away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hi.
It's Dorothea. I had a comment, not a question.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, on behalf of the Hudson County Community College support staff, that we are truly honored that you have come here today to speak with us about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We are very inspired by what you had to say to us today, and we will carry through with all of it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that comment. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that comment so much. Thank you. And thank you for, listening in and enjoying this exciting day of programming that's only just getting started. Okay. If anyone drops off after lunch, even one person, I have all the addresses in a drone.
Doug, I wanted to share and to reiterate my appreciation for you giving of yourself and giving of your time to create a greater sense of awareness for the college. As noted earlier, I've been following you socially for quite some time, but did not really know the true magnitude of your presence. And something like this was truly a personal blessing and benefit for me. So I'm personally grateful that I had an opportunity to listen to you. I was one of a handful that was privy to your slide deck prior to today's presentation, but your comments really concretized it for me, and it's a personal blessing. So thank you very much once again for being here to share your time and talents with us. Continued success, my brother.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Jones. I'm just trying to get that doctor title. I went to go change my first name to doctor because that may be the only way I'm doing it. I mean, these is just a commitment to knowledge, So unless I change my first name, I don't know if I'll ever get there, but it was great to meet both of you as well.
Keep going, and there will be one or more honorary degrees before you know it.
That's right. Dr. Freeman, did you want to close us out? And then we'll go to lunch, and we'll thank Doug Melville and Rashida for being here today.
Doug, Rashida, thank you so much. Absolutely awesome. I think we're going to reflect back on this moment that we've had together. I think it's part of a real set of turning points for us. I think we're going to be able to talk about this moment as a moment that catalyzed a number of things that will become part of the college and part of our future. So you're having an impact. Your work is amazing. It's inspiring us. And thank you so much for for taking us on as your first Convocation gig.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's my first one. We did it.
Yes, let's everybody give a hand, virtual hand.
Thank you.
Hands to Doug. Turn on your mics, clap, clap. When just so much that we can say, oh yes, yay, woo! Convocation 2020.
Guys,
Underway.
one more thing. If anybody
Yes.
wants to share on social, we didn't really talk about the hashtag.
Yeah, I did make one though.
Oh, you did make one, but the thing is, you know what would be helpful to everybody is just on your, I want to tell everybody on this call, make sure to keep your LinkedIn updated. It's growing. It's becoming a great networking platform. So just make sure everyone makes a LinkedIn and enhances it, because now that it was bought by Microsoft, when you go to type an email to somebody, their LinkedIn profile is integrated in the email and comes up on the right side of the screen. So if you don't have a profile, it comes up all blank. So what you should know is that every single time someone writes an email to you is an opportunity for someone to learn about your story and see your visible diversity. So I need everyone to make a LinkedIn account. That's their homework. And I also want everyone to identify 3 people in their lives. Everyone needs 3 different people in their lives. Everybody needs a mentor, an advocate, and a coach. A mentor is a North Star, someone that you may not talk to every day, but you have a guiding energy with them as someone in your life that you aspire to. An advocate is someone within an organization that you want to work, or in an institution where you want to go farther, who's working to help you move and navigate to get where you want to go professionally. And a coach is someone who's in your ear that says, you're the champ, you can do it, I believe in you, nothing's going to stop you, don't don't take no for an answer. So as everyone's homework beside the LinkedIn, I need everyone to identify, old or young, no matter who's on this call, a mentor, an advocate, and a coach, and then take that time to give the phone call to them and let them know. And that will be a way to start building and re-energizing and inspiring yourself around diversity.
Okay, so we got that. Thank you, mentor, advocate, and coach. We got the LinkedIn information. We got the hashtag HCCC Convoy 2020.
HCCC Convoy 2020.
That's it, Convoy. We moving forward with this. Get on the Convoy, and then also we want to let people know that go to the myhudson.com/HCCCU/convocation for the afternoon workshops for those links, and there's a separate link than this one. Again, we thank everybody for participating, for being here. We thank our student speaker. We thank those who gave presentations. We thank you for introducing our keynote speaker. We thank our IT reps, our ITS reps. We just thank everyone, and we'll see you after lunch. I'll meet you downstairs in the banquet hall for a very tasty lunch. Again, Doug Melville, thank you. I'm not going to forget that. A mentor.
Thank you.
An advocate, and you need a coach. Wow. That
absolutely. And also everyone needs to have their passport.
Yes. Passport.
Everyone is going to need to get their passport, and I'm making everybody go down to the office and get your passport.
Wow.
Learning diversity is best when experienced. And even if you have a first time, a last time, make sure you're able to leave this country and see the world. Please go get your passport.
Looks like more work for us to do, so we appreciate it. Thank you, yours, Pujols. Thank you, Dr. Reaver. Thank you, Dr. Freeman, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Anna Krapinski, who's also going to be doing a workshop this afternoon. So go grab that lunch, and we'll see you back. Thank you, Willie Shirer. Give it up for Willie, our technician this morning, helping us with all our technology needs. Thank you, Willie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Colin, who was in the wings. Thank you, Lawrence, who was helping our student in the IVT room. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, that's it for now. So we'll save the